Hey Dylan, Weston here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the current price of Ethereum and doing a bit of technical analysis. This was a request by Jason T. If you have a request like this, then feel free to post it down below and I'll try my best to get to it. And before we jump into it, please do leave a like and subscribe because I tell you what, I think we deserve it after how accurate we've been over the last few weeks. All right, so a bit of a backstory with myself and Ethereum. I'm actually an investor in Ethereum since day one. So I actually invested into the ICO. I'm pretty sure it was like the second or third ICO, if I can remember correctly. I think the very first one was Mastercoin. So I remember when Vitalik Buterin, he released it. He made like, I think it was a YouTube video back, like it was in Miami in 2014. I remember seeing him like, man, this crazy alien looking guy. He was so intelligent, smart for his age. I think he was like only 21 or something at the time, and I was just blown away with the concept. Thought it was absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, I've seen it all with Ethereum. I also participated in the DAO where it got hacked, and then it led to the fork. I've seen all of this stuff, so it's pretty interesting to see how far Ethereum has come. But for me personally, as time has gone on, I feel like these cryptocurrencies, they haven't held up with all of the hype because it's been quite a long time now. What, like 8 years for Ethereum? Bitcoin's over a decade old. So I feel like there's kind of better assets out there in the world where you can make faster money in a safer way. Like the reason why I was so bullish on this stuff all the way back in 2013 and 2014 was like the whole entire market cap or the whole value of all the coins combined was like less than $10 billion. Like I remember when Bitcoin was only worth $3 billion for the entire lot of them. So now it's like, it's way bigger than that. And when people are telling us, hey, you're super early to, cryptocurrency, Ethereum, decentralization, all of that, like I don't really tend to agree. I feel like we're kind of like in a middle stage now. So it's that early period where you can make that fast money. It's gone. I still think you can make decent money with crypto. Like everybody always says, like, oh, the institutions are coming, they're going to buy our bags and all of that. But if you look at the volumes on Coinbase, you can see like most of it actually is already coming from institutions. Like institutions have more money in than the public. And that isn't necessarily a good thing because institutions, they don't only go long, they can actually short as well. And I think it's actually making crypto harder. So crypto is awesome for us traders because the market is so volatile, goes up and down all the time. But you just got to understand, for me personally, the way I look at it is like a war. Like you're going to fight these other traders every single day. And my biggest advice with all this crypto stuff is like, don't listen to what everybody says. Like, oh, we're all going to get rich together. Like usually a lot of the time it is a negative sum game where certain people, usually the people promoting this stuff and making the coin, they're the ones that are going to make all the money. They're going to take everyone else's as they market it, and then they're going to sell into those people. So I feel like it's not as a nice place, like say with stocks like Amazon, Apple, where it definitely does seem like the investors and the people running the company, they're more aligned. All right, so that's a little bit of an insight into my thoughts on Ethereum. Let's jump in and let's check out and see what's happening with the charts. So before we jump into it, we have to check out the S&P 500. And we're talking about in the last video, there's most likely going to be a bit of a bounce because we had so many red candles in a row with the S&P 500. We had one red, two, three, four, five, six, 7 red weeks in a row. Markets don't go down in a straight line and they don't go up in a straight line. They go in a zigzag formation. So it just made sense that we had a bit of a pullback. Now we've gotten that pullback. This week, we've already started to get red. Why? Because we're getting stuck at resistance right now. So I do think the base case is somewhere in here, it's going to turn into resistance and we're going to start rolling over again. And I think we're going to make new lows with the S&P 500. Now that's really important because if we make new lows with the S&P, then that's going to lead to all of the market following, even if it is cryptocurrency. This week on crypto Twitter, I've been seeing a lot of talks about the decoupling, right? So what does that mean? A decoupling is when something decouples the correlation to the S&P 500, all right? So this can be a good indicator of relative strength or relative weakness. So if we check the chart of Ethereum, let's look at this decoupling. So what has happened is Ethereum has been relatively flat, right? So that is different to the S&P 500. So far, like if you look at all the moves, they've been very, very similar. Like when the top came in, very similar with the S&P, got this bounce around the same time and you went down. And now recently, the S&P 500 went up, but Ethereum and Bitcoin and the rest of crypto, they've been pretty damn flat. So they have decoupled from each other. However, yes, we've got a decoupling, but this is actually a negative decoupling. So what you actually want to see is you want to see the S&P 500 go down. So the S&P is weak, the overall market is weak. And then you want to see signs of strength where this goes up. So recently we've actually gotten the opposite of this. The S&P 500 has gone up, which means it's pretty strong. And crypto and Ethereum, they've stayed flat, which means that they are weaker than the S&P 500. This is not a good sign. Because of this weakness, I have to say I am bearish on Ethereum, especially for the medium term. Long term, I'm bullish, but I feel like it's very, very hard to be bullish Ethereum over the next few months. Also, what we need to understand is like all the cryptos, they're highly, highly correlated. So whatever happens with Ethereum, Bitcoin, usually the rest of the cryptos will follow. Like it almost always happens. So I made a video about Bitcoin last week. Pretty much whatever I said in that video, it's very relevant to Ethereum as well. Just as a recap, Ethereum, it's had so many of these lows coming in here. Like this does look like a typical head and shoulder pattern. People will argue it's like it's not textbook because we don't get a touch here like that, but that really doesn't matter. Like all we need to think about is like the psychology of the chart. Like it's very obvious there is support through here. That support is at roughly $1,700. Now we've been going sideways, right? Sideways and down since what, February 2021. We're now June 2022. So that's 1.5 years of no one making any money. Now, if no one's made any money for 1.5 years, like what does their face look like? I'm pretty sure their faces look something like this, right? So not necessarily unhappy, but they've got a bit of a frown on their face. Now, what's going to happen if we start breaking down below these lows, right? Because I don't think it's going to be the bottom. It might have a little bounce, but we've had the bounce in the S&P. This didn't want to bounce with it. It's just held up. Like what happens when the S&P goes down? This is probably going to break lower. When this breaks lower, everybody who is short-term trading has their stop loss here. If they have their stop loss and they're betting higher, that means their stop loss is a sell order, right? So if you start triggering these sell orders, you're going to get a bit of a capitulation, a big red candle lower. And when that happens, what's going to happen to everybody's frown? Like it's going to get even worse, right? They're going to get even more unhappy. And when people get even more unhappy, they're going to do less buying. So I just can't see anything really positive with Ethereum just yet. With these patterns as well, what you can do is just like the measure X rule. Generally speaking, about 70% of the time, when you do get a weekly close under the pattern, which will confirm the pattern, then you just measure the height of the pattern and you just measure it down like this. And then 70% of the time, you will hit the target. So the target with Ethereum is around 500-ish to about $700. And once you start coming in this area, I do think it is turning into a bit of a screaming buy. That is where personally I'll start loading up quite a bit here, most likely in hopes for it to start recovering eventually. But the biggest thing like with crypto and just investing in general is like you got to understand your position sizing. I've found that with myself and many other people, if you have less money in it, any given trade or any investment, then that allows you to be more aggressive when everyone else is panicking and are going through fear. So like for me personally, like if I had a shitload of money up here, then if we crashed, I'll be way too scared to buy the dip. But now, like for me, I've only got about 1.5% of my money in Ethereum. Total allocation to crypto is like less than 5% currently. When the market was hot, like up here, I did have more because I did think there was going to be a good breakout and a move higher for another leg higher and turning into a real big bubble. That didn't happen. And because that didn't happen, I just trimmed all the positions really hard. The environment across the world changed rapidly. So now, like you only got less than 5% in crypto. If we do get this big pullback down here, this big drop, then I'll start loading up crypto and making a larger position, larger total position in the portfolio. And then when we do start getting these moves down here, then I will be looking at, Twitter and stuff like that. When it gets really, really negative out there, that's like a sign that, hey, you probably want to be loading up on the dip, because people are giving up. People are saying it's dead. When people say it's dead, then that's probably the point of maximum opportunity, or at least very close to it. Like I remember back here when I was loading up on the dip in like 2019, early 2020 and all of that, people have said it's done, you know, and then you started to make these nice double bottom patterns and you started to break out, and it's quite obvious setup. So when everybody starts giving up, that's really when you want to be loading up, especially like with Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin was like even more obvious. The same setup has come multiple times. Like when we went through these big busts, like the very first bust, you started to finally get like those higher highs and higher lows go sideways for a bit and then start breaking out. Then you got really bullish patterns like ascending triangles and stuff like that. And, it was quite obvious that you're in an uptrend. But like what you're looking for is when you're in a downtrend, you're constantly making new lower lows and new lower highs, and you want to see that reverse. And there's nothing wrong with being like 6 months or 12 months late from the bottom. I feel like it's better to be late and then make a lot of money than go too hard too early, lose all of this money too quickly, lose your confidence, and then you can't play the game for the long term. And that's like exactly what happened in like 2017 to 2018 as well. Constantly lower highs, lower lows. And then you got that big capitulation down to 3,000. Then you saw it all over Twitter. Everybody saying Bitcoin's dead. And then you went sideways for a bit and you started to break up and make those new highs. And I think it's very similar to what's happening now. We've got these equal lows across Bitcoin. Like I was saying in the last video, reminds me of the famous $6,000 mark back in 2018 when we kept on hitting it so many times. So yeah, it looks like, Bitcoin is surviving, Ethereum is surviving for now, but if the S&P takes a dump, I don't think Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to survive short term. All right, guys, that's my thoughts on the current state of Ethereum, Bitcoin, and crypto. A little bit of the S&P 500 as well. Let me know down in the comment section if you agree or disagree with me. And get ready for the next videos coming out. I'll be going over some more bear market lessons and some overall like trading and investing tips. So get ready for them.